Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Jake. This is my channel, Jake at Linux. Today we are going to get started on my third video in my series on my new Nova custom laptop. I've done my unboxing and first impressions. I've done a video talking about Desharo Core Boot and why they use it. And now I'm going to do a video on installing Arch on the system. Now I can't record the actual install on the Nova custom laptop because, well, I don't have anything installed to record it. And I don't want to have a camera set up over my shoulder aimed at the screen because I just don't think that looks very good. So what we're going to do is we're going to install via SSH on my current machine. So if I go over to Workspace 1 here, you can see I am actually booted into my root at Arch ISO. This Arch ISO is on my Nova custom machine. I've booted into my Nova custom into the Arch ISO, and now from my local machine, I have SSH'd into that. Now I will leave all the steps that are required to do that in the description, and I actually might make a title screen that shows all the different steps you have to take to do that. It's just a couple extra things. Most people don't need to install via SSH, but if you want to know how to do it, I will go ahead and put those in there for you. But we are all SSH'd into the machine. We are ready to go. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more in case somebody's watching on their phone. But we're going to go ahead and start with the install. So what I need to do right now is I need to do an lsblk. And we're going to hit enter, and you can see I've got the SDA right here, which is the USB drive that the Arch ISO is on that I'm booted into currently. I've got NVMe 0N1 and NVMe 1N1. I have two drives on this laptop. This 1N1 right here actually has a void install on it right now because, well, I'm not going anywhere. Void is home. So I do have void installed. On my other drive right here, the 0N1, I am going to be installing Arch Linux for you guys. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Now that we know what drive we're using, what device, we're using NVMe 0N1, we can run the fdisk command. So we're going to do fdisk. Hey, geez, learn how to spell, Jake. And we're going to do /dev/NVMe 0N1p, or excuse me, just 0N1. Now, make very sure if you have multiple drives, you are looking at the correct drive, because if you don't, you're going to wipe out whatever you've got on that other drive. So we want NVMe 0N1. We have NVMe 0N1. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Now what we're going to do is I was going to do a install with BTRFS and subvolumes and encryption and all that good stuff. But unfortunately, it wreaked havoc on my system since I've already got that void install with encryption and everything on there right now. Trying to do all that, you can do it, but it's just a headache, and it just is going to take way too long to do it on camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an ext4 install on here with just your three basic partitions, boot, root, and home. And then I will do a write-up just like my BTRFS void install on my website. I'm going to do a write-up of this video that I'm doing, and I will do a write-up of it with encryption and BTRFS and subvolumes. So that way, I recommend watching this video if you've never installed Arch before, or some video of installing Arch just to kind of get an idea of what's going on. And then if you want to do it with encryption, then you can go to my website and look that up. But there's a million different void installation videos and tutorials out there. There's Arch installation scripts now. It has gone from being one of the more difficult distros to install to actually being pretty simple. There's a lot of documentation on it. It used to be a rite of passage. Now it's just kind of the thing you do. So let's just go ahead and get started, shall we? So now we are in the fdisk command and in the utility. So let's go ahead and make some partitions. So we're going to type N for new partition. We're going to hit enter. That partition default 1 is fine. The first sector is fine. Now the second sector, we're going to do a plus 256 capital M, and we're going to hit enter. Do we want to remove the signature? Yeah, let's do yes. If it does ask you this, say yes. If it doesn't, you don't even have to worry about it. So we're going to hit enter. Now we're going to do N for new again. We're going to hit enter. Default partition 2, correct. First sector is fine. We'll hit enter again. Last sector, let's do plus 70 capital G, so that'll be 70 gig for our root directory. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Yes again, we'll remove that signature. And then we'll do a new again. We'll hit enter for default, yes. First sector, yes. Last sector, yes. Remove that, yes. Hit enter, and we are done. There's a few other things you can do here, but we're not gonna. If you want to select the type of partition, you can press the T command and go through a few steps. I'm not gonna worry about doing that. So we're going to go ahead and hit W for write. We'll hit enter, and we have now written that. So now if we, let's actually clear the screen and do an lsblk, you can see that NVMe 0 and 1 now has 3 partitions, our boot, root, and home. So now we need to make some file systems. So let's do mkfs-fat, and we'll do -F, and we'll do 32. Let's do the -N flag, and we'll say boot, and hit enter. Or excuse me, hit space, and then we'll do dev NVMe 0N1P1. So that's going to make it FAT32 file system. It's going to give it the label of boot, and it is going to be on NVMe, not ON1. We want 0N1P1. So that's that first partition right here, that 256 meg. So let's go ahead and hit enter. So now we have that. Now let's do a mkfs, and we'll do .ext4. And then we'll do -L, and we'll say arch, and then do space -dev/NVMe 0N1P2, and hit enter. So that's going to give that the label of arch, and then we'll just press up. We'll do partition 3. We'll give that the label of home. So again, the mkfs.ext4-L home, and then we're going to go ahead and hit enter. It's going to create that. Let's clear the screen and do an lsblk again, and you can see we've got all those done. So now that we've got our partitions made, we can actually mount them. So now if you want to make a swap partition, you can. That's going to be the mk swap command, and then dev on whatever partition you created for swap partition. I'm not using swap because this thing has plenty of memory, and I just don't need it. So I'm not going to do a swap partition or a swap file. If you need to, then you can look up the documentation on that. It's real super simple to add a swap file even after the fact. So now that we've got everything created, we are going to mount, and we're going to mount our /dev/NVMe 0N1P2, which is going to be our root directory, and we're going to mount that on the /mount partition. So we're going to go ahead and do that and hit enter. Now we are going to mkdir, and we are going to do /mount/ and then we're going to do an EFI and hit enter. We're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do home and hit enter. So now we have a mount /EFI and a mount /home. So what we're going to do now is do a mount, and we're going to do dev NVMe 0N1P1 for our EFI, and we're going to mount that on /mnt/EFI and hit enter. And now let's just press up. We'll do the mount, and we'll do NVMe 0N1P3 for our third partition, which is our home partition. And we'll make that, and we'll mount it in the home location. So now we have everything mounted where we need it to be, and we can actually go through and start the install of stuff. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually get some stuff installed on that file system. So let's do pack strap, and we're going to do -K. And then we're going to do base. I'm going to do Linux. We're going to do Linux-firmware. We're going to do Linux-headers. We're going to do Intel-ucode. If you're AMD, you're going to want to run AMD ucode. We're going to do base. Oh, we've got base. We're going to do base-devel. Then we're going to do... let's see, what else do I want to have on here? Let's do EFI, is it boot? Yeah, EFI boot manager, DOSFS tools. So let's see here, base, Linux firmware, Linux headers, Intel ucode, base devel. Let's put Vim, let's put network manager. Now you could really get away with just doing base, Linux, and Linux firmware on here, but I try to get as much stuff as I can installed right now while I'm thinking about it, as opposed to later on down the road on the install when maybe I forgot about something. But later on down the road, if you do remember something else you want on there, there is going to be another step for installing more packages that you can do it in. But for right now, I just like to try and get everything I can think of installed right now. So I think that's good. So let's go ahead and hit enter. Base, not a directory. Oh, shoot. Okay, so sorry. So we need to come back here. Let's do Control A to jump back to the front. And we need to do -K, but then we need to give it the mount. So we want to make sure it knows we're installing it on the mount partition. So go ahead and enter. There we go. So this is going to take a few minutes to install, a little bit longer for some than others, but depending on your internet connection and all that stuff, what mirrors you're using. I'm going to go ahead and put it on pause here for a minute while this installs, and I will be back with you as soon as this is done. Okay, so there we are. We are done with that install, so we can actually now clear the screen. Everything went well, so let's go ahead and get started with the setup. First thing we need to do is we need to write gen fs tab, and we're going to give it the -U flag, and we're going to do /mnt, and we're going to append that to /mnt/etc/fs tab. So that's going to generate our FS tab for us. We're going to go ahead and hit enter. That's good and done now. So now we can actually chroot in. So let's do arch-chroot, and we're going to do /mnt, and then we are going to do /bin/bash, just to make sure we're in the bash shell. Let's go ahead and hit enter, and we are now chrooted into our system. So let's clear the screen, and let's start running some commands here to get our system set up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our time zone. Now again, like I said before, there is probably a million different install guides on Arch Linux. There's going to be differences in all of them. They're all going to come up with the same end result with Arch installed on your system. Some people might do steps in different order. Some people might do things a little differently. This is just the way I do it. So feel free, if you find a different tutorial that you like a little better, to use that. This is just kind of the way I do it every time I've installed Arch. So let's first set up our time zone. So we're going to do ln-sf. We're going to do user, share, and do zone info. And then I'm in the Chicago time zone, so I'm going to type America, Chicago. You actually go ahead and put whatever your time zone is there, and we're going to do etc/local time. So we're going to link user, share, zone info, your time zone, to the etc/local time file. So we're going to hit enter. That's going to go ahead and take care of that for us. Let's go ahead and set up the hardware clock. So we're going to do HW clock, and then we're going to do --sys2hc and hit enter. So that's going to set our system to the hardware clock. Next step we need to do is we need to edit the locale.gen file. So we're going to do a vim on the /etc locale.gen and hit enter. And if we do a /, I'm in US, so I need to do /. I'm going to look for en_US, and we are right there. So if I hit enter, go into insert mode and uncomment that line, we're going to escape and write and quit. And then we're going to run the locale-gen command, which then is going to generate our locales. So that step is now done. What we need to do now is we need to set up a locale.conf. So we are actually going to echo, and we're going to do capital LANG for lang. We're going to say equals, and I'm going to do en_us.utf-8. And then we're going to put that into our Jake, etc locale.conf. So again, you're going to put your locale in here. I'm just doing the enus because that's my locale. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. That's going to create that. So now if I cat /etc locale.conf and hit enter, you can see that is all set up in there. So now that we've got that done, our next step is going to be, you can set up an etc vconsole. We're not going to go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and set up our network configuration. So we need a host name. So what we're going to do is we're going to echo, and we're going to create a host name for this machine. I'm actually going to name mine Arch Machina, and we are going to put that into /etc host name and hit enter. So now if I cat etc host name and hit enter, you can see we've got Arch Machina. Next we need to set up our etc/hosts file. So let's go ahead and vim into that one because there's a few lines we got to do, and we're going to do /etc/hosts and hit enter. And we can get rid of these two lines here. You don't have to, but you can. I'm going to go into insert mode, and I'm going to do 127.0.0.1, and we're going to hit tab, and I'm going to say local host and hit enter. We're going to do ::1. We're going to do 2 tabs and say localhost and hit enter. Then we're going to do 127.0.1.1. We're going to hit tab and you're going to put in your host name. Mine was archmachina.local domain and then archmachina. So again, it's localhost, and then the last one, the 127.0.1.1 is your hostname .local domain and then a space and your hostname again. So we're going to escape that. We're going to write and quit. So now we've got the host set up, we've got the host name set up, we have the time zone set up, the locale set up, we've got our file system installed, we've got everything that we need so far. So what do we have next? Let's do mkinitcpio, and we're going to give it the -p flag and hit enter. This is going to go ahead and build, and we'll give it a second here to finish this. After this, we have a few more steps to do. I'm going to show you how to do set up your root password, your user, and your username password. Add your user to groups. I'm going to show you how to install a bootloader, although I'm not going to install a bootloader because, again, I have void installed on another disk here. So I'm just going to use that void grub install to detect my Arch setup, but I will walk you through the steps on installing grub on this Arch setup. I just won't officially do it. So this should just take a second to finish up, and as soon as it's done, I will be right back with you. Oh, we are done. I didn't even need to pause it. So there we go. So that's all done. So let's go ahead and clear the screen. Now we need to create a password. So let's do PASSWD and hit enter. This is going to create our root password. So let's enter a super secret uncrackable password here and hit enter. It has been updated successfully. Now we're going to run the user add command, and we're going to add the user of Jake, which is me. You're going to add whatever you want your username to be. So I'm going to add user add Jake. Now we're going to do password Jake and give my user a password. So we're going to do a super secret, even more uncrackable password. Not the same as the root password. Of course it is. Who doesn't use the same password? Well, maybe some people don't, and I'm just dumb for doing it, but whatever. Anyway, so we have our password for our root and our user. Now let's actually add our user to some groups. So we're going to do user mod-a capital G, and then we're going to add the names of the groups we want our user to be part of. So I want them to be part of the wheel group. I want them to be part of the video group. I want them to be part of the audio group, the storage group, the network group, the KVM group. Let's see here, wheel, video, audio, storage, network, KVM. That should be good for now. And then we do a space and we add the user we want to add to those groups. So user mod-ag, all the names of the groups you want separated by a comma, no spaces, and then a space and the username you want. So we've added those. Now the next step, we are actually going to do a sudo vi sudo and hit enter, and we're going to do a / to go into search mode, and we're going to look for wheel. Hit enter, and you can see right here we are going to uncomment this line. So we're going to go into insert mode, we're going to uncomment that, and now this next step, you could just write and quit and be done here, but this next step I do on everyone. You don't have to. I like to do it. You can decide what you want to do. We're actually going to type our username, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do all equals, and in parentheses we're going to do all all, and then close those parentheses and do all. Then we are going to escape, and we're going to write and quit. So now that we have all that done, we've got our password set up, we've got our user set up, we've got our time zone and our hosts and our host name and all that set up. We can actually run the systemctl enable network. Oops, that's going to be a capital N. Network Manager. So this will enable Network Manager for us, and it will be ready to go when we fire up after we boot in. You can just go into NMTUI and connect to whatever wireless connection you want. Very important you get that done. You don't have to start it right now, but make sure you install some sort of network manager or whatever you want to use to control Wi-Fi if you're not using a wired connection. So now that we've got that done, I'm going to show you how to install grub, although I'm not going to actually install it, but you're going to do a pacman, maybe if I can spell, -s grub, hit enter, it's going to install it, then you're going to run the grub -install, and you're going to give it the --target, and you're going to hit equals, and you do x86_64-EFI, and then you're going to do space -- and you're going to run EFI directory equals /EFI, and then you're going to give it the dash dash bootloader dash ID equals, and you're going to give it whatever you want. So you could call it Arch, you could call it Grub, you could call it whatever. So grub install dash dash target equals x86 dash EFI, dash dash EFI directory equals slash EFI, and then dash dash bootloader dash ID equals whatever you want the bootloader to be called. You're going to hit enter. Once it does that, it'll install. It should be fairly quick and tell you no problems. Once you do that, you're going to run the grub-mk config, give it the -o flag, and /boot/grub/grub.cfg. So then you're going to hit that. That's going to generate your boot configuration or your grub configuration file, and that's all you need to do. That will take care of your grub install for you. At this point now, we are all good to go. We can actually exit out, and you can umount /mnt and hit enter. Oh, mount is busy, but you can do umount -r mnt. That'll unmount the mount directory for you. At this point, you would do a reboot. I'm going to go ahead and do a reboot. You're not going to see it, obviously, because I'm SSH'd into a different machine. That machine still doesn't have anything I can use to screen record for it. But just know that this is the final step. Once you reboot, you should be into your system. Then you can run the nmtui command. If you're running Wi-Fi, it'll bring up your Wi-Fi menu. You can connect to your Wi-Fi, and you can actually start installing stuff. So that is how this works. Like I said, it's super easy. If you're doing encryption or other stuff, yes, there's some other steps required. But for the most part, to get Arch installed on your system, it's not scary. If you're new to this and people are telling you, oh, don't install Arch, it's hard. It is really not. If you're willing to sit down and just pay attention to what you're doing, understand what you're doing, and follow some simple direction, you can get Arch up and going on your system. Arch is not this scary beast that everybody used to think it was. It's actually becoming more and more common. A lot of people like Arch better than they like some of the more stable, easier to install systems, just because it runs better on newer hardware a lot of the times. Not always, and I'm not knocking any of those other ones. Debian is an amazing distribution for everything it does. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, all these easier to install distros, there's literally nothing wrong with them. They're great distributions to use. I have a hard time saying anything bad about really any Linux distribution because it's all a matter of preference. Like I said, I prefer Void. That's what I've been using for well over a year now. I'm super happy in it. I do love Arch. I was in Arch for a long time before that, but I stick with Void. But again, nothing wrong with any of the other distributions. Arch just isn't the intimidating factor that it used to be. Gentoo, on the other hand, that's another story. I will do another Gentoo install video, I promise. I did one already, but I think I want to try another one actually on hardware. The other one was in a VM. I want to do one on hardware, but I digress. I'm rambling now. We now have Arch installed on our system. You should be good to go. And like I said, I will be doing a write-up on this process on my website. Give it about a week or so, and they should be on there. One with BTRFS, subvolumes, and encryption, and one just like we did today. So I hope you found this useful and interesting and entertaining, and I hope it helped you out a little bit. And I hope you get your system up and going the way you want it, all right? Because that's why we use Linux, right? Because we can get it the way we want it. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your weekend. Stay safe, and God bless.